Hello and welcome to another edition of View from the Bridge. My name is Joel Amy. I'm delighted today to be joined by another Notts fan in Paul Severn. Paul, it's great to have you with us. This is part of our sort of county conversations we're having where we're discussing our love of county cricket and in particular Nottinghamshire. So, introduce everyone to yourself, Paul, a bit about your background and what you do and your love of Nottinghamshire sport.
Big fan of sport in Nottingham. I grew up in Cotgrave. Moved away since to Milton Keynes, but still get back a lot to watch Notts at Trent Bridge. Also, I've got a season ticket at Forest as well, but also watch a bit of ice hockey and rugby when I can. So, sort of seeing all of the different sports on offer because it's unrivaled really in Nottingham, I think. So I've been a Notts fan for about 40 years. I think the very first game I went to was 1987 with Rice and Hadley still playing. So it does go back a bit.
Well, you see, taking quite almost like a lot of the sort of the end of one golden era, and probably, as you say, quite a lot of. I guess you could class as a bit of a golden era because going before the 80s, Notts were not exactly a great side. Had decades of probably underachievement, so you probably seen the best of it. But like a Forest fan growing up now, having missed sort of the League One days and coming in the Premier League, thinking, "Oh, it's always this good, isn't it?"
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing that really got me into it was 1989. It was a Benson and Hedges final. I think it was Essex. And Eddie Hemmings hit a four off the last ball. And that was the days when it wasn't all T20 and sixes flying everywhere, and that was really, really exciting. And I think that really got me hooked. Growing up, it was the likes of Tim Robinson and Paul Johnson, Franklin Stevenson, Chris Cairns, that kind of era when I was sort of going every week. So I think I sort of win the Sunday League as well. I remember running on the pitch after that when you were still allowed to do that kind of thing. It really was a great era. But then I did move away, go to university, moved here, a little bit more expensive to do all the travelling. So there was a bit of a hiatus for the other championship wins. But then in more recent years, I've got back into it. Went to the two Lords finals. I can definitely say that the Hales final against Surrey was the best cricket game I've ever seen live. Probably the best innings I've seen live. That was absolutely incredible. I remember being so nervous before every ball that he faced because if he was out, that was it. It was lost. But yeah, I've also been to finals day, but we went out in the semi-finals on that, and I did manage to have the week off for the final championship game as well. So I saw the bonus point being claimed as well, and the trophy being lifted on the last day of that. So really lucky to have seen so many things over the years.
Oh, I mean, I'm jealous. So I always bore everyone by saying my earliest memories. You mentioned finals. I remember 2006 and that devastating defeat in the final to Leicestershire. That was painful. In fact, my first ever game at Trent Bridge was 2004, and I remember it's not Middlesex 50 over game, not 50 over, it'd been 40 or 45, whatever they played at the time. And Lance Klusner needed 19 off the final over. Stuart McGill bowled. Klusner whacked him everywhere, and Middlesex won. So it's amazing what sticks with you, isn't it? You say about running on the pitch. I remember watching Shane Warne have the net, and me being able to go on the outfield at tea and watch him. It's like, you don't get that these days, do you? It's just those are what sort of create those memories, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And also been fortunate over the years to go to a few away games as well. Some really good ones at Scarborough, I remember. But yeah, I've been to. Yeah, I went to the first day of the Oval game actually, the famous one against Surrey last season, where we. But it was only the first day for that. So yeah, it was also great to see other grounds around the country as well, because Trent Bridge is right up there, but there's some other good ones as well out there on the circuit.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a different. That's what's nice is the variety as well. It's like you go to the Oval, and it's obviously a huge test match ground. But say someone like Scarborough, I'd love to go to. I imagine that's just a completely different experience. And even if you go to a normal county ground, you've got, you say, such variety, isn't there?
Absolutely, yeah. I've been to Sussex fairly recently. My favourite probably is New Road. I know it's often flooded these days, but that's just really nice. It's got plenty of stands and some good vantage points, and it's just really attractively located. So that's probably my favourite actually.
I definitely want to tick off new roads. I went to Derbyshire last year for the first time, and I actually really enjoyed it. It's different. It's I don't know why. I just everything feels a lot closer, a lot more intimate. I like that feel around a cricket ground. Yeah, no, it's so most
Yeah,
of my experiences have been sort of mainly test match type grounds. Edgbaston I knew quite well. Been to Lords in the Oval once, and Leicestershire. But yeah, it's nice, and I bet. I mean, going to the Oval for that first day, I mean, that must have been something because every day was riveting, wasn't it?
yeah, it was. And to be honest, I left at the end of the day thinking that's it.
Yeah,
The title's lost. I think I did pick up the Surrey members thought that they were going to win it, but cricket's one of those games, where it can all turn around. A friend of mine who supports Surrey went to the Hales final. He thought they were going to win all day, until right at the end. So that's what's fascinating about the sport. It can just change, and certainly over 4 days. That I think that's probably the best 4 day game I've ever seen.
I agree, and a lot of people who remember the '80s probably even more than you do. They put it up there with this is the best they've seen, and that's saying something, isn't it?
Mm.
And you know, a lot of Notts triumphs have come in sort of not adversity, but you think about you mentioned 2017, the 2010 one against Lancashire, where it looked like the rain was going to ruin it for them. And that looked like that was over as well. And yeah, last season I went. I think at the end of every day, I was like, "Ah, it's gone, it's gone."
Mm.
And yeah, even I think even in the I think the final wicket was under where the Surrey when you want to win 1 wicket to win. I kept thinking they'll somehow do it. They just will, won't they? It's like
Yeah,
it's the thing with sport, isn't it? It just it punishes you, doesn't it? All the way through.
yeah, absolutely. And you do remember those big performances that turn that around. And I think Josh Tong really delivered that day for us, and he was the difference. And that's what turned it. And then, but even on the final, the final game, it was nervy at times when there was every time a
Mm.
wicket went down, the crowd did sort of hush a bit every time a wicket went down, but we did get over the line reasonably comfortably in the end.
Yeah. How does now we're getting all nostalgic? How does Josh Tongue rate in terms of the bowlers you've seen there? I mean, for me, I think of Andre Adams for sort of continual excellence. Ryan Sidebottom, Pattinson, James for his sort of 1 year of terrorising poor Division Two batsmen. But I mean, Tongue last year. I mean, for sustained brilliance and match turning spells. I mean, it's hard to think of many better seasons from a Notts bowler than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, when he signed, you're looking at his injury record, and you're thinking that's an interesting signing. Obviously, he's wrapped up in central contracts in England and all of that, but he did play a reasonable number of games. And I did go to a game earlier in the season, and he wrapped up the tail as he does in a really hostile way. And I said to a friend of mine, "Oh, that really is exceptional. That is quick and hostile." And you could see that he is just that level above the average county bowler, and that obviously was really useful when it really really mattered. Thinking back to other bowlers, I did have that sort of hiatus where I didn't go quite so much. That you were talking about some of those bowlers, but yeah, going back certainly, yeah, Franklin Stevenson was a very very hostile bowler. So yeah, I would certainly put him up at that kind of level, definitely.
Yeah, so wasn't he the last one to do the 1,000 runs, 100 wickets
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
in the
yeah. He
championship?
did. He did. I don't know how he did it. I think it was pretty hard on the body to do all of that. But yeah, I think he's got a. I think that's covered in a book about him.
Yeah, I think he was needed quite a few runs in the last game as well, if I
Mm.
remember reading. So
Yeah,
yeah,
very exciting player. Got everything in his locker.
no, absolutely. No, it's great. It's great to look back on. I think it's nice to sort of think about what's joyful about county cricket. And I agree with you about Tongue. When he cleaned up Durham in that opening game with that spell where it looked like it was going to be a draw, you go, that's different. It was 4 wickets in 2 overs, and it wasn't said the first time he did that. And it's you get a bit of a thrill, don't you, when you see that in county cricket. I mean, even when we lost to Durham, the reverse fixture, and Bryden Cast was bowling, and obviously we know what Cast could do, but you could see when he was on it that he was, an international cricketer, and that's quite exciting. I mean, you must have seen some great opposition players as well that made you sort of go, wow, they're special to watch, I suppose.
Yeah, I think one thing that's changed is when I first started going, and I did speak to a county cricketer a few years ago about this. Is that in the 80s and probably early 90s, every single county had a top international. Curtly Ambrose, Courtney Walsh. So in the first game I went to, Hampshire had Malcolm Marshall, and I think potentially Greenwich as well. So every team had one, and you don't quite get that anymore. You might just get a Steve Smith for a few games or something like that. But that's one of the things that's definitely changed. That the teams don't have the internationals playing every week. They don't have that established test star. So when you do see something like what Josh Tong did, then it really is special now.
Yeah, so I've been doing some research for something I'm doing at the minute. If I won't bore everyone, but I'll try and be quick. If I give you the one overseas player each county had in the 2000 season, right? Listen, I won't go through each county, but I'll just give you the names. So, Sakle Mushtaq, Surab Ganguly, Anil Kumble, Jamie Cox, Rahul Dravid, Darren Lehman, Shane Warne, Simon Katic, Michael Divenuto. That's Division One. Division Two: Alan Donald, Michael Bevan, Stuart Law, Matthew Hayden, Matthew Elliott, Glenn McGrath, Justin Langer, Ian Harvey, and for Notts, they signed up Shoaib Akhtar because he didn't ever get to play because of injury. But they then replaced him with Paul Rifle. Now, even a casual cricket fan would probably realise that that's not a bad list of players, is it? I mean, it's
no, absolutely. And the cricketer who I spoke to said that then gave young players in England a real grounding to learn how to battle. If you're against those sorts of players, you're going to learn very quickly. You're going to sink or swim. Where now you're not facing that quality. So if you then go into the test arena or go on a tour of India or Australia, it's just the step up is enormous. So that's been a big change, and probably not for the best. And we're obviously pulling out our test players as well. So you don't have the Tim Robinsons and the Graham Goochers playing every other week. So that's certainly been a big change.
absolutely. So anyway, there's a few things we wanted to discuss. I know you've got a bit of a list of areas we wanted to sort of go into because this is a chance for people who come on here. And we say we want more people to come on if they'd like to really sort of share what they enjoy about the game, what frustrates them, what they everything really. So where should we dive into next, do you reckon, Paul?
Well, I think like the schedule is something that everybody's talking about all the time. So certainly got a few views on that. I think it's an interesting thing that the discussion is based on this premise that that there is just too much county cricket, and it's really worth digging into that and seeing is that really the case, or are we trying to make room for other things like franchise cricket? So there might be too much cricket, but we've had this new concept or or even version of the sport added in there that is completely different and not played by clubs as we know it, and they're played by franchises. So when you have things like the Strauss review or any other reviews that they've been, they're always looking at the county fixture program, but the cause of all of that is in fact the franchises. So if you're going to sort of solve that, you also need to minimize the impact of that as well, and make sure that that's streamlined alongside it, because otherwise it will just continue to creep and take over and push, and that's really what we've been left with now. There's these flurries of activity in the schedule, and games back to back, 3 home 2020s in a week, and that is obviously ridiculous. But the cause of it is not county cricket itself; it's this emergence of a whole other form of the sport. So then you get long periods of inactivity where bowlers are just bowling 4 overs here and there. There's hardly any games for Notts at Trent Bridge in August anymore. So it's just worth sort of challenging that, really. And is it really as packed as some commentators say? I don't think it is. If you compare it to, say, ice hockey, where they play twice a week, 2-3 times a week, football can be packed at times. You think of Forest in Europe at the moment. That's pretty heavy. And baseball, they play a minimum of 162 games a year and have to fly all around America. So it's just worth sort of challenging that a little bit, and that narrative. I don't know what you think about it. I know everyone's got an opinion on this. It can get silly, I think, at times, but it certainly wasn't as packed. It isn't as packed now as it used to be.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the argument that in the past they probably played too much to an extent. I agree. I think I kind of see it from a football perspective. So you play a lot of matches in football, but you have big squads. So there's opportunities there to rest, rotate. So for me, and also the 50 over competition is a chance to bring some youngsters in. To some players are away. I'm not convinced there's too much cricket. I guess for me the biggest issue is the scheduling in terms of how it all runs, in terms of what's played when. So when the championship's played, when the Blast is played, if they're playing too many back-to-back matches. I think that's more of the issue for me, and I think that tends to be what comes up in conversations you hear from the PCA as well. I think that's what they say, that it's playing a Blast game on a Friday, and then having to then travel and play again on a Saturday. I mean, actually, I had to double check this, but and obviously September this year, they're really piling in the fixtures, the 4-day fixtures, right at the end, and I think there's a very short turnaround between a couple of them, and I think that's again more of a problem, because if you think about it, September, it's the end of a long season. You've got cup finals as well, and then you're trying to cram in. Yeah, here we go. So September, Notts play Leicestershire 4-day game. They finish on Saturday. 3 days later, they're playing Hampshire in another 4-day game, and then after Hampshire, 4 days later, they're playing Sussex in a 4-day game. I mean that seems ridiculous.
I think cricket needs to move more with football and utilise that squad a little bit more. Utilise younger players, and that's certainly something that used to happen in the 80s, definitely. And one big cause of it, I think, is this sort of obsession on blocks. It certainly wasn't the case that there was blocks in the past. You would have in the 80s and probably 90s, there was 4-day games that would actually be interrupted by a Sunday league game on the Sunday and then continued again. Because I remember the scoreboard used to be wiped off because the new game had to take place in the middle of it, and then the scoreboard had to switch back again to finish off the 4-day game, which is bizarre. And I do think an international level, you do switch between formats very, very quickly. I can see they're playing Sri Lanka now straight after the Ashes, so you do have to be able to switch if you're going to play in all of the formats. So I do sometimes wonder whether, as a domestic tournament, the Blast should just be throughout the season as well, rather than these sort of truncated blocks. But I guess you wouldn't get the overseas players then.
They tried that before, didn't they? I don't mind the blocks, I suppose. I mean, so I also mentioned the gaps between fixtures there. I scrolled back a bit further because they play. So they start off this run of 6 in late August against Surrey. So there's a 4-day gap between that and the Warwickshire game, and then there's a 3-day gap between that and the Leicestershire game, and then a 3-day gap again, and then a 4-day gap. So basically, you've got 5 matches taking place, and there's no more than 4 days between any of them if they go to the final day. And it's obscene, really. That's the end of the season. As well. So no, but the Blast, you're right. I could kind of see the argument for it. Having it on a Friday night every week is a sort of made to view thing. But I don't know. I do kind of like having it sort of getting into the red ball and then getting my head around the white ball. And but there's no ideal solution, is it? I suppose.
No. One thing I was going to share is something that I did several years ago. It was about 10 years ago now, where I looked at the amount of cricket played. So it was done in 2015 season, and I compared it against my first season, 1987. It was just so the 2015 schedule is not the same as it is now, but it's similar in that the competitions are similar, and the actual numbers of days are not much shorter. So 86 in 2015 versus 93 in 1987. In August, there was 30 days of cricket compared to 56 in 1987. And then if you look at like workloads, that's really interesting because the main seamers were bowling 400 plus overs in 2015 and 500 overs in 1987, and then spinners, Samit Patel bowled just under 400, Eddie Hemmings bowled 969, which is just incredible amount of overs. So that does show that the workload has significantly dropped. So there's already been a lot of cuts. And then you also had the overseas there all season. So Richard Hadley bowled 715 overs, which is absolutely crazy, compared to what we see now. And in 2015, you had 5 different overseas players coming on a kind of rotation basis. The test players would play probably half the games. So in between every test, they would come back. And I don't know. Travel. If we put in all of the travelling between games into Google Maps, 5,250 miles in 1987 and 4,000 in 2015. So there has been a significant cut, and it just seems to be cut, and it's always the county games that get cut and squeezed into a smaller and smaller block. And ultimately, I think that the franchises, that the IPL and extra international series have really been the cause of that sort of issue. But it just shows how much it has reduced and how heavy it used to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose it's always trying to find a balance, isn't it, with everything in terms of. I mean, you listen to a lot of experts, and Kevin Shine, I know, is one who's probably as highly rated as they come, and he says bowlers need to bowl.
Yeah.
Steve Harmison says you need to keep bowling. He says that's been an issue sometimes. And
so why is Richard Hadley able to bowl 715 overs, and then an England bowler can't get through a 5-test series regardless of any county involvement? There must be some reasons behind that.
Absolutely. So No, it's an interesting point, and I think Notts are in a good position to be able to rotate their bowlers, for instance. So, I mean, what we're going to start the season with O'Neill, Hutton, Pennington, hopefully Tongue for a bit if he's available, Stone. And you've got obviously a lot of bowlers who maybe didn't feature much last year. Obviously, Lyndon James is all rounder, but other seam bowlers as well. The likes of Rob Lord, Tom Giles, Conor McCurr. There's a battery there of fast bowlers in terms of, as you say, I think maybe cricket needs to sort of think more about rest rotation, and that's one of the things I hate. So obviously, you're a Forest season ticket holder, so let's compare some of the sports. Because you're a Panthers fan as well, and watch a bit of rugby. So, because I get frustrated when I hear football managers complain about the fixture list, and I think, well, you've got a £30 million striker on the bench. Why didn't you ever give him a game? So, as a spectator, what are your feelings cricket-wise compared to the other sports you watch? I suppose in terms of scheduling, but also maybe the in-game experience.
Yeah, one of the things that sort of brought me back after sort of moving away was actually the T20. I'm certainly not a dinosaur in that I don't like, it's red ball or nothing. I do really enjoy the T20, and the thing that really got me back wasn't it great to have a ground that's completely full to watch Notts, because growing up it was very much empty stands, that kind of thing. So I think there's T20 has really elevated cricket to more casual fans, and it's great to see the ground full for a Notts game, and that's why I do find the 100. It's really sad that now that pinnacle of domestic cricket is now a franchise team. I think that's really quite sad. So I think the Blast was really, really good for Notts to sort of raise that profile, get new fans coming. But there is a big question now: is it possible to run those tournaments and have them both thrive side by side? I think we are seeing the Blast sort of erode away. And there's a lot of competition in Nottingham now, isn't there? Because obviously Forest are getting much larger attendances. They want to expand the stadium, that kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see where Notts remain in the sort of the sporting landscape, or whether over time the county club is superseded by Trent Rockets or whatever it's going to be called by its latest owners. So I think that's a worry. But if you're comparing other experiences, I do think Nottingham Panthers have just really done really well in making it a fantastic experience to go. You get much more diverse crowds, more women, more children there, that kind of thing. So there's probably a lot to learn from that, and they're getting great crowds, 8,000 for a lot of games. So probably a lot to learn probably from ice hockey, I think. And they play plenty of games. It's not that there's too many, because if the product's good, people keep coming back.
I suppose that's one of the things with the 4-day game. So we spoke to Hugh Tuberville from the Cricketer yesterday, and we both kind of agreed that the Can Championship the last 2 years seems to have stepped up a notch in terms of quality. But you think that if you were to get more England players available at the start of the season and really marketed it properly, and let's say you played it in May when it's maybe slightly warmer than April, you've got a product there you can sell. You've got the streams, you've got Stokes and Root and Brook and Tongue and all playing against each other. Yeah, I think people would like to watch that, I suppose, even if it's not at the ground, at least on YouTube or wherever. But I think that's not common enough. But also the publicity as well. I mean, how well is it marketed, our competitions? I mean, the Blast now gets very little sort of prominence. The Championship gets... You used to have a few Championship games on the Sky in the season. Now you're lucky you might get 2. It just feels like the people who run the game don't make a big enough effort. One of the things I'd love to see would be to package all the highlights up at the end of each round of Championship fixtures and get it on a channel, free to air or somewhere. Even if you give it away to begin with, just get it on there, and you don't have to show every match in detail. But if Ben Stokes has whacked 100 for Durham, show the highlights of that. Show Josh Tongue taking 3 wickets in an over or whatever. Show some of that excitement, some of that, that last ball tie, the 500 game, Glamorgan Gloucestershire. Get that on. Show some of that. I'd like to see more of that. I mean, I see more marketing for the Panthers, and I don't even go to ice hockey, but
yeah,
I get stuff in the arena telling me they're on all the time.
Yeah, I think what's sad for me is that there is a great product there, as you say. The Blast was selling really well. The county championship's pretty unique. A lot of foreign players want to come and play in it. And then we also had another 50 over tournament with a Lord's final. The 2 teams that played in the Surrey final were very, very strong teams with multiple internationals. So there was a product there, and it never felt it was very loved or respected even within the game. So how can you really market it if you don't like it and you want to bring something else in? And that's really sad, because with technology now, the best thing about the current day and age is you can watch nearly every ball that's bowled in the whole season. That's fantastic. It was never really pushed. I don't know all the ins and outs of the finances of the game, but could there have been an attempt to revamp county cricket and have something that was a bit different to the IPL or the Big Bash, where new teams, maybe with slightly new identities, were formed and a new league was created, which at least was more closely tied with the clubs, because Trent Rocket's got nothing to do with Notts at all. There was a few players who sort of overlapped in the first couple of years. That's now completely gone. Drafts are completely different, and I just don't really see how it is sport compared to the county game. County game's a lot more rich. It's tied with its community. You've got players who can come up through a system to play for Notts. Well, you can't really do that for Trent Rockets. You're just drafted, or you could be drafted anywhere. So there's a real sense of loss there, that we had something good and it was not invested in, it was not marketed. And now we have a situation where these entities are at the pinnacle of the game, and they aren't clubs, they aren't part of the communities. The players are very transient. Recently we've now seen what we literally now have at the top of our domestic structure 3 IPL teams who are kind of just playing in some of our best venues, which is so it is really, really sad. But county cricket is still alive and kicking still, and it does need more ways of bringing it out, because it is richer, it is more interesting, and club sport is always more authentic than franchise, in my opinion.
That's why I like the Big Bash. The Blast for me used to be must-see viewing, no matter who was playing. I mean, I remember, so the day before I got married, I was watching me and my best man watching a Blast game. I think it was Middlesex were playing. Had De Villiers, Morgan, and a couple of other. I think was Milan playing as well. Like in that, Sterling. The batting lineup was stacked, and I just think that was must view. And like now, I look through some of the lineups and I kind of go, but at least with the Big Bash, that's probably the other T20 league I don't mind watching. It feels like it's the atmosphere there. It's very family friendly. The players really care. You get some of the Australian internationals come in. The white ball players are there throughout the season. Then some of the test players come in at the back end. The matches are played quick as well. They're over in just over 3 hours. It's very, and it feels like they care about it as well. And it's there because it's a state. It's their team. They support them, and it feels different, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think if those franchises had been more closely linked to the counties, I think you wouldn't have this kind of Brexit style divide amongst fans, and that if it was maybe Trent Rockets was 7 Notts players and 4 guests or something, that kind of thing, where you could aspire to play in the 100 and move through a sort of system and through merit, but it isn't like that. It's just completely divorced, and that's why I see it really more as a threat than anything that complements. It doesn't seem to be any cross marketing either. It just seems to be a completely standalone thing, which is a real shame and probably a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the idea of whether this was the initial intention or not, was to have a 100-team link to every county, which actually would probably defeat the object of it, but it would also make it better in a sense of everyone then feels affiliated. Whereas you have Welsh Fire, and you've got players, very few Welsh players there at all, and they're linked with 3 counties. It's not quite the same, is it? But
yeah, and I've always said as well, you would never see Manchester United or Manchester City sort of superseded by some other body, Manchester Super Giants or whatever they're called, and sort of merged and, oh no, that's the Manchester team now. You would never see that because the clubs have so much heritage, history and following already, and it's just a really strange thing to create these completely new entities above that have no particular link through. I just don't really understand it. I don't think it has any authenticity.
No, but look, I think we discussed the 100 to death on these podcasts. So absolutely, I think most county fans feel the same as me and you. So why don't we sort of look to end on sort of more positive notes? Do you have anything else left on your list you wanted to go through in terms of?
Yeah, maybe just talk about next season prospects for that. So yeah, I think, I don't know about you, I wasn't expecting us to win the championship last season. I think it came out of the blue a little bit, but maybe it was a sign that sort of sticking with a with a coach and a structure and a captain can pay dividends rather than constantly swapping around like you see in football in particular. Hamid really grew into the role. We started to get that battery of bowlers that you need for the number of games. And I remember thinking at the start of the season when they signed Abbas, Verena and O'Neill, I thought that's spot on, because you're really bringing in people who are better than the domestic players. You're filling holes like the wicket keeper rather than duplicating it and creating selection issues. And I think we actually might go quite well. I didn't think we would win it, but I think we really deserved to in the end. But I don't know, did it come out the blue for you?
So you obviously didn't pick up our. It's a chance for me to plug a bit more of our content. So last season we did an episode and a blog. We are on Substack for everyone listening, so do check us out on there. Our prediction was top 4. We thought Surrey would be too strong, but we thought Notts. There's a lot. I thought Notts were written off actually quite a lot at the start of the season. You listen to the cricket podcast, and they'll go, "Oh well, this team's probably going to be fighting relegation. Will probably go down." I had us for top 4. I didn't see a title win coming, but I thought on paper we looked really strong. So, but I guess for next season, I'm not quite sure what to expect. I do fancy Surrey to come roaring back. I think they had made a few mistakes on the way in terms of maybe player availability, so overseas players in particular, and maybe the Dan Worrell didn't really do much. And I think they're going to come back really strong. And I think Notts will struggle to be as good as what they were. And I don't think Josh Tongue will be as available either. So
no. Yeah, on when it comes to T20, I think it's well documented, isn't it? We've had so many players retire, move on. Patel, Mulaney, Christian, Haynes, Vessels, Reed, Fletcher, Ball, now Harrison as well, Carter. Almost an entire playing 11 has gone. So there's always going to be a downturn in that. And I have felt over the last couple of years that there's just been too many red ball players trying to moonlight in T20, and that's been a real problem, struggling to get the ball over the ropes, struggling to contain big hitting batsmen. I think it's been a real struggle even to sort of win half the games over the last couple of years. There's been a few failed experiments as well, and I think where the recruitment has been really spot on recently in the red ball. In the white ball, we still seem to be wanting to bring in people in the back end of their 30s, that kind of thing, that don't really seem to make sense. So I'm not as optimistic for that. We did a bit better than I expected last season in the T20, but I'm not as excited. I don't think we're going to really challenge in that. I think a lot of even the smaller counties, the non-test match grounds, those teams have actually overtaken us now in that.
No, I agree. Well, you know what? At the end of the 50 over fixtures, our first one in that block of 6 at the end, it's Surrey away. So maybe if it's a title race on, maybe we should try and organise a big trip of Notts fans to go descend on the Oval on day one. I do think there must be a great community of supporters out there. And I do wonder whether, I mean, you know, I've not been able to attend much in the last few years, so maybe I'm not aware, but, you know, I guess it'd be nice to sort of meet more Notts fans, go to matches together, you know, go to away trips as well, because, you know, it must be, I do love this game. And I think like if we don't go and make the effort, you know, on occasions to go watch, who will? So maybe that's something we should try and do. Maybe we'll see if we can coordinate something, get more supporters together at matches so we can enjoy the season together, enjoy the experience of being champions and seeing what that's like, you know, because, you know, it's so difficult to win one of these things. They don't come very often unless you know, sorry, recently, but yeah.
Well, absolutely. Seeing us lift the county championship at home was really unique. I was saying to a friend of mine recently, I don't think that's happened since the 80s. So to be there and see that happen at home, it's once in a generation stuff. So I think the best thing with county cricket is to enjoy what you can while you can. Like, yes, there is the 100 nipping away at it. There is franchises. There are frustrations, but it's still a great, domestic scene out there. There's still some great grounds to go to and some really good matches. So we should still try and enjoy it. And of course, you can watch more than ever online as well, which is something that we didn't have in the past. So you've got to weigh it all up and balance it.
Absolutely. I think that's a nice positive note to end on. I think, you know, we love this game. We love county cricket. We enjoy watching it, and it's been great to get your memories as well. I mean, I just love chatting about it, and, you know, the matches, the innings, the spells we've seen. We could probably chat about those all day, couldn't we? In terms of some of the cricket we've watched with Notts. So, and yeah, let's try and make more of an effort, all of us, we can this season, to embrace the game, watch it, whether it's live, whether it's on YouTube, or even just the highlights packages. And, you know, we're going to try and, you know, this podcast, try and do a bit more as well if we can, and just to really, I think, celebrate everything county cricket, because I think that's the aim of these episodes. So if you're a Notts fan and you want to come on and chat about, you know, your love of the county and county cricket, then please do get in touch. We're on X, we're on Facebook, we're on WhatsApp. We have a Substack as well, and now we're on YouTube. This is the second one, so there's no escaping. But look, Paul, it's been a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
No, absolutely. And to everyone else, you know, we'll hopefully have a few more episodes coming up in the near future. Take care, everyone.